There are 12 chains that hold us back in life. And so today I want to take you through those 12. I want to help you understand what they are and how they fit together so that you can fully understand and start to make changes in your life. So you can start breaking free of those chains. But before I dig into each of the chains, I want to take a moment and explain and I guess explore how I actually came up with the 12 chains model. It actually started as I was creating some slides for a presentation. I was preparing a 4-day online challenge or 4-day online training for parents, and the topic was around managing screen time, online safety, some of the work that I'd been doing previously on the back of writing and launching my first book. So the first book was called Watch Us Play, and part of the book was around managing screen time, the interviews that I did with parents and child psychologists and industry experts. And so I was taking some of the content from that book, turning it into online training, and I was planning on doing a 4-day live training, so an hour each day for those 4 days. And as I was creating the slides for one of the days, I created a model of some of the things that parents don't realize impact the way that their child responds to them, to screen time, to online safety. And there were 12 things that I came up with. So there was relationships, and there was perception of how much time is too long. You know, when I talk to parents and I ask them how much time they enabled their child to have on devices, some would say 1 hour, some would say 2 hours, some would say 3. So there was clearly something there that had influenced them. There was a perception the parents had of how much time was too much. And so I created this model for the slides, and then I looked at it and was like, actually, a lot of these things are not just about screen time. They're actually about life. And that's how the 12 chains model was created. I saw that it was a model for life, and so I started to explore that further and think, okay, if these are chains that hold us back in life and from finding the freedom that we want, how can we break free of them? What do we need to do, or what do we need to understand? So I then went through and started writing down and making notes and thinking and going, okay, well, what would be the steps that we need to do to break free? I was actually able to use one of the models that I'd created for the first book. It was a 4-step model. Step 1 is assessing where we are, assessing our reality. Step 2 is understanding. Step 3 is introducing, and step 4 is about repeating. So assessing where we are, which are the chains that are holding us back, how they show up in our life. Understanding what it is that we could do differently. How could we change? Introducing is then about starting new behaviors, creating new habits, new ways of thinking, and repeating is about keeping what works, changing what doesn't. So I had all of these pieces come together, and because I'd looked at the model and gone, yes, this is a model for life, that's how I started down the path of sharing it with people, helping them break through some of the chains that I'd broken through in my own life. So yes, I'd had the positive thinking, I'd healed my broken neck without the surgery, I'd given up alcohol, I'd worked through fear, launched my first book, launched a podcast, done various other things. So it was not just a case of having the model and being able to share that with people. It was also about sharing some of those experiences that I'd had in my own life to be able to give additional context and some perspective. So what are these 12 chains? They actually split into 3 different levels, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through each of the 3 levels so you can see how the chains build on each other. So the first level is about self-directed actions, the things that we can control based on the actions that we take. And the chains that fit into this level are knowledge, speed, convenience, and relationships. Knowledge is an interesting one because it's actually about the knowledge gap that we have. To break free of the knowledge chain, we need to gain new knowledge. And it may be about things that can help us and work, but it could also be about the things for the dream vision that we have for our lives. So if we want to live on a tropical island, or if we want to run our own business and break free of the 9 to 5, we're going to need some new knowledge. We may not currently be equipped to take those steps, make changes. So to break free of the knowledge chain, we need to identify the knowledge that we need to gain and then work to gain that knowledge and understand and learn new things. So knowledge is the first chain because we have the ability to gain that knowledge. It's a self-directed action. We can go and take courses, we can go to seminars, we can read books, we can watch videos. We have the power to manage that situation. Second one is about speed. And speed, there's a couple of different ways of looking at speed. When I talk to people, they often say, the world moves too quickly, there's new technology all of the time. And then in another breath, they go, I'm trying to build a business and nothing's happening fast enough. So speed is a chain that holds us back based on how fast or slow we perceive certain things. And the important point here is to actually break free of this chain. We need to accept that everything is a journey. Some things will take time. Some things will take a short amount of time. Some things will take slightly longer. Building a business does not happen overnight. It takes time. Getting to your dream vision, as much as we would love it to happen overnight, there are probably some things that need to be put into place first for us to be able to get there and achieve that. And there'll be an element of time that needs to pass for that to happen. So speed is one of the chains, again, that we can control based on how we respond to situations, the actions that we take. What can we do to try and speed things up? And how can we appreciate that some things are just going to take some time? And I want to point out here that time is one of the 12 chains, and I'll come back to that later, because time as a chain is different from thinking about the speed of things, the speed of change, the speed of action. The third chain is convenience. We are surrounded in our lives by convenience. We can do all you can eat, everything on demand, 15-minute delivery. There's so much convenience in our lives, but what that means is that it's easy to fall into the trap. We can watch one more episode. We can have another cookie or a slice of pizza or a slice of cake. Convenience is there, the temptations are there. So to break free of this chain, we need to understand and assess where we are. What are the convenient things in our life that are actually aren't helping us move forward, that stop us? Maybe it's the time we spend watching those extra episodes. If we're looking to have improved health and body, maybe it is the things that we're eating because they're convenient for us, but they're not actually helping. And then the fourth chain in the level of self-directed actions is relationships. If you had to think about all the relationships in your life, I'm sure you'd probably be able to identify people who make you feel good whenever you're around them, whether it's because of their humor, the way that they approach certain situations, types of conversations that you have, they make you feel good. And then there's probably people who drain your energy, who you almost can't wait to be away from. So you're on one end of a spectrum, you've got those who fill you up and fuel you, and on the other end, you've got those people who drain you. And we need to assess all the relationships in our life, because to move forward, feel better about life, and work towards the freedom that we want, we may have to drop some of those negative relationships, the ones that drain us. Because if we are constantly putting ourselves in a position where we are feeling drained or we're being drained by other people, it's going to have a negative impact on the rest of our lives. So it may be a hard decision, but it's an action that you can take. You can start to distance yourself, spend less time with those people who drain you. So those are the 4 chains at the level of self-directed actions: knowledge, speed, convenience, and relationships. And as we move to level 2 is about external influences. These are things that society, our friend and family networks, work colleagues, influences from those external sources. And so the 4 chains at this level are responsibility, priorities, time, and location. There's 2 types of responsibilities. Those responsibilities that we want to embrace, that we put ourselves forward for and put our hands up and say, you know what, actually, this is a responsibility that I want. And then there are those responsibilities that are given to us by other people, by society. And we may not actually want them. So to assess and understand these, we need to almost create those lists and say, which are the responsibilities that I've wanted to take on, that are important to me, that fuel me and make me feel good, and which are the responsibilities that actually I've been given by somebody else, and yeah, they're not great, they don't make me feel good, they take up all my time, I don't see any benefit from this. And once we've got those lists, we can start to take the action, we can start to make the changes. Priorities are very similar. Which are the things that we prioritize, and which are the things that we've been given that are priorities for other people that we make our priorities. And that's an important point. There'll be some things that if we were to create a list of how we want to spend our time during the day, there'll be some things that we put on there as our personal priorities. But I suspect through the day, through the week, through the month, there'll be certain priorities that actually aren't yours. They're other people's, and you've adopted them. Those other people, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's work colleagues, they've turned their priorities into your priorities. And that's one of the things that's going to hold you back. Because if you're constantly working to help other people with their priorities, you're not focusing on your own. That's going to hold you back from achieving what it is that you want. So priorities is one of the 12 chains. The next then is time. I've already mentioned it briefly, but how are we using our time? Yes, there's a consideration for the speed, how we can speed certain things up, and appreciation that some things will take time, but generally time. We have 24 hours in a day. How are we using our time? How are we using it constructively? Where could we change how we look at time? How could we use time for different activities? If there's a list of activities that we create that we want to do more of, where's the area that we could say, you know what, actually I'll spend a little less time on this. It may be watching the episodes, watching the films, watching sports. Maybe I'll spend a little less time doing that, and that frees up time for something else, a new activity, breaking the knowledge chain by gaining new knowledge, spending more time with the people who fuel you, and supporting on the relationship side. So time is a chain that holds us back, because, and I'm guilty of this in just the same way, sometimes my use of time is really poor. I spend time on the wrong things. I spend more time on things than I should, and therefore that time is gone. I'm never going to get it back. So it's important for us to think about time and how we use it. And then the final one at the external influences is about location. Are we in the place we need to be to move forward? Sometimes location is dictated by family. Sometimes it's by work. But if we know we're in the wrong place, maybe it's time to take action. Maybe it's time to look for new jobs somewhere else around the world. Maybe it's time to break free of family and explore what the world has to offer. If there's a place that we know we want to live, and that's part of our vision and our dream and the freedom that we want, maybe it's time to explore how we get there. What do we need to do? What are the opportunities? How can we spend time there, even if it's on vacation, just to build up and feel like we're getting closer to the vision that we have? So location sometimes can hold us back. I had this as an experience in my own life, building a mobile app platform. I was in the wrong country. All of my potential clients were in the US and Europe, and time zone differences and not being able to travel meant that I struggled. Now, if I'd have been still based in the UK, or I'd have been based in the US and I was going to events and I was having face-to-face meetings with some of the potential clients, I may have had more success. So location was one of the things that actually impacted me. So those are the first 8 chains that we've gone through. Knowledge, speed, convenience, relationships at level 1, they're self-directed actions. Responsibility, priorities, time and location at level 2, the external influences. And then at level 3, it's about the mental images. The images that we create in our head that hold us back. And the chains here are risk, fear, pressure, and perception. Risk is about putting ourselves in the way of danger, things that may happen to us based on a specific situation. And so we weigh up risk and we decide whether to take action or not. But risk then is something that can hold us back. We have a perception of what danger is, and therefore we may not take an action that we need to take. Some people may not feel comfortable setting up their own business because they see it as dangerous. There's no guarantee of stability. And so they see it as a risk and they don't take that action. But on the flip side of that risk and taking that action may be the thing that sets them free. I've been an entrepreneur pretty much all my life, since the age of 16, so I've taken on that risk. I've embraced it. I've known that there's uncertainty, but I've felt reasonably comfortable with that. Yes, there have been ups and downs and highs and lows and times where there are no projects and no money, and then there are other times where I've had projects and I've had too many things going on. I weighed up that risk and I broke through to say, I'm comfortable with this risk. The next chain is about fear. Fear is an image that we create in our head. Normally it's the worst case scenario for something, and that's what we let hold us back. Skydiving, fear of going splat. I had that when I went to do a skydive. There was a fear of that worst case scenario of what might happen, of the parachute not opening and me plummeting to the ground. But it was actually very rare. It was unlikely to happen. So there are things that we create images about, those worst case scenarios that are very unlikely to happen, but we let them stop us. We let them hold us back. And so breaking that fear chain is something that, yes, we need to work through. I had the fear of writing and publishing a book, and what would people say? What would the response be? What if I got it wrong? I had to break through that. I have, and now I'm the other side, and I do have a book published and live. Pressure is an interesting one because it's the pressure we feel and the images that we create in our head based on external pressures and internal pressures. We are notoriously hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up. The conversations that we have in our head, most of them are not for public consumption. We beat ourselves up so much internally with the words that we say to ourselves. So we put pressure on ourselves internally, and I'm guilty of this in exactly the same way. Yes, I've been an entrepreneur and there have been the highs and the lows, but sometimes, my internal dialogue is really negative. It's really is really angsty, and I beat myself up about why did you do that, Phil? What was the point? Why did you say that? Why do you not take action? Why are you not doing the things that you need to do? We put ourselves under pressure, but it's something that is tied to our mental images, our mental processes. External pressure from other people, again, is based on what's happened and the image that we create. So somebody's put in a request, or there's an email that's been sent, and we immediately go to worst case scenario. What is it that they mean with the email that they've written or that message that they've sent? And we feel pressure, but that's created by us because of how we've interpreted a situation. So pressure is a chain. If we can move away from that interpretation and say, this is what it is. Okay, I don't know the full context of this communication, of this request, so therefore I can't make a judgment on it. I need to go and find more information and fully understand it, and then I can think about how to respond. So pressure is one of the chains that holds us back. And then the final chain is about perception. What is our perception of the world, good and bad? Where has that perception come from? And then tying into the other chains, sometimes we worry about the perception that other people have of us, and we let that hold us back. I mentioned the book and fear of writing it and publishing it and doing it wrong. It was also that perception piece of what other people would think, what they would say, how I would be perceived by other people. But when I worked through that and went, actually, why does it matter what other people think? If I'm comfortable in myself, I know I've written a good book, I've shared some valuable information, does it matter what other people think? So perception is also one of the chains that we let hold us back. If we can move to that point of breaking through and caring less about what other people think, it helps set us free. It helps put us in a position where we can move forward. So those are the 12 chains, and I've given you the 4 steps as well to break through, being able to assess each of those chains and say, okay, how does this show up in my life? For some people, there may be specific chains that are more prevalent. You can see those, feel them, touch and taste them. For you, maybe a completely different set of chains for the ones that I've had to work through. The important thing is, once we know what these 12 chains are, we can start to assess them, we can start to understand what it is that we can do differently, and then we can work to introduce new behaviors, new habits, new ways of thinking, new actions, and finally we can repeat those that work, that help move us forward. Maybe it is mantras, meditation, keeping a time diary of how you're using your time, habit stacking to introduce new habits, time boxing in your calendar for specific things. There are many ways that we can go about introducing and then repeating new actions, new behaviors, new thinking. But the starting point is understanding those chains, which I hope I've now given you that basic introduction to, and then those 4 steps that we can take to break free of them and move towards the vision that we have for our lives, the freedom that we want, whether that is breaking out of the 9 to 5, whether it's living on a tropical island, whether it's being able to experience amazing things that the world has to offer, trips, concerts, various opportunities that are available to us. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, so that as you read and see, listen to other content that I share, when I reference specific chains, you'll be able to say, okay, I remember Phil positioned it in this way. This is what he's talking about for each of the chains, and those 3 levels of chains, the self-directed actions, the external influences, and then the mental images and things that we say to ourselves. So those are the 12 chains that hold us back in life, that we all have the power to break free from, and move forward in a more positive way towards the visions that we have for our lives.